Okay, good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. It's afternoon, I just said that. My name is Caitlin. I'm the executive director here at the Matheson History Museum, and we are really delighted today to be able to welcome as our first program of 2023 authors Mike McGinnis and Jeff Davies. So they have this wonderful book that they're going to be speaking to us about that started as a Facebook group in 2012 with about 100 people in the group. And there are now over 200,000 people in this Facebook group sharing pictures of Florida history. For those of you that are on Facebook, I'm sure that many of you are very familiar with this group. I know I sure am. So about a year and a half ago, a publisher reached out about creating a book based on this Facebook group and all of their wonderful images. So that is what we are here to talk about today. And we do have a few of the images in the book are from the Matheson History Museum collection. So we have back in the back table there, Willett, who is there to help anybody who would like to become a member of the museum today. We are an independent nonprofit. We want our members and donors, as well as our generous grant sponsors, to make sure that we continue doing this work. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Visit Gainesville, Alachua County, the City of Gainesville, and the State of Florida Division of Cultural Affairs for sponsoring this program. And I encourage you all, if you like what we're doing here, to please go ahead and visit our membership table at the end of the program and continue to help support the museum. So I'm now going to turn it over to the authors and let them tell us about this wonderful book.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And we'd like to thank the Matheson Museum for having us today. We're here to tell you about our Facebook group and our book and talk about how it all came to be, how Jeff and I met and so forth. So we're totally unscripted here. We're just going to kind of wing this. So we started the group about 10 years ago. It originally started as an Orlando-based group because that's my hometown. And the name of the group was Historic Orlando. And I was in a few other historic groups at the time, and I kind of had this vision of how I wanted to uh, run a group based on just historical photos. A lot of the groups that I was in at the time were kind of nostalgia-based groups, where people talking about, um, what type of breakfast cereal they used to eat as kids and what songs they listened to. And all of those have a place. But I really wanted to start something that just dealt with the history, the old buildings, the people who came before us and so forth. So we started a group, and I recruited a few members from the other groups that I was in to help me get this off the ground. And it started slowly, and we grew pretty quickly. And it was really neat because we were getting a lot of old timers from Orlando that were able to share their knowledge with us, and it became a great learning tool for everyone involved. The members would oftentimes comment on photos and share their personal recollections of whatever was in the photo, and it just kind of blossomed from there. We then saw an opportunity to start a Florida history group, and it was the same thing, just on a larger scale. We obviously had a lot more photos to pick and choose from, and we gained a loyal following, and we've steadily just increased on it over the years, and it's become a quite a resource, we feel like, for old photos. Um, we get a lot of member contributed photos, so people have the ability to share their photos from their photo albums instantaneously on the group, and people can immediately interact with them. And so it's really a unique platform in that sense, unlike um, a book. Say trying to pick up knowledge from a book is wonderful, but this is different in the ability to people immediately interact with one another, and everybody basically learns from that, and it's a great group and a great group of people. So we're very proud of that.
Hi, I'm Jeff Davies. Thank you for having us. I echo what Mike has said. the way that I came into this was about 6 months into the group that Mike had started. I found the group from a mutual friend of ours. I started posting photos. I started discussing history with Mike, and we found that we had a lot of shared interests. I'm originally from South Florida, lived in Miami Beach, lived in Orlando for a year, and now I live in Boca Raton. I travel up and down the state, and I've watched the group, as Mike said, grow from 100 members to 207,000 at last count. What makes this different from the other groups is that it's not necessarily just somewhere where you post photos and say, here is Paynes Prairie, here is the Alachua Sink, here is University of Florida, here is Lake City, etc. We go deeper than that. Each photo elicits a conversation, exchange of ideas, exchange of memories, but also historical facts. One of the main things that we concentrate on within this group is being historically accurate as best as we possibly can. Nothing's ever going to be perfect, but we try. We do the best possible job. So the group continued to grow, and we continue to add members, and we continue to find other sources such as University of South Florida, University of Florida, of course, Matheson History Museum, and down in Miami, the Miami-Dade Public Library System, which has an incredible library of Romer photos and from the White collection. About a year and a half ago, as he mentioned earlier, we were approached to write a book. Before we agreed to write a book, I sat down with Mike and I said to him, what can we do to make this book stand out? Because I was told by the people at Borders that there were 430 books on Florida history. So we had to do something different. Otherwise, we'd wind up, as I mentioned to Caitlin before, on the shelf in the back of CVS by the pharmacy with all the other books. The idea we came up with was to put it out there to our members and say, what do you have? What kind of photos are in your attic? What kind of photos are in your grandmother's trunk? What can you share with us that would be completely different than what we've ever seen before? And they came through in numbers. So what makes our book different is that at least a third of this book is strictly member photos. We happen to have a member here today who contributed photos. She came to, hear us, see us, meet us. And it has just been a labor of love. The book came out basically as a thank you to our members, because without the support of the people that are on the group daily, that are liking photos, that are asking questions about photos, that are asking, where did this particular photo come from? It would just be basically click, 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 and then that's it. Furthermore, what has happened with this group is it's become a teaching tool. There are universities, there are local schools that have used our group and by extension our book in their curriculum. About 3 or 4 years ago, my niece, who was in high school in Israel, told me that she showed her professor our Facebook group and that he was using it as part of his curriculum for American history. I mean, that says a lot, from just a couple of guys with a shared interest in history to becoming something that's being used at a school in Israel, means something. So I know I'm jumping back and forth, but getting back to when we were approached by the publisher had ideas and had suggestions as to how he wanted us to put the book together. We listened, we met him halfway, but in the end, we had a vision that we didn't want to create a product that had nothing to do with our Facebook group. If something works, if it's not broken, why fix it? So that was basically the formula behind it. So over the last 3 months, we have been traveling all over the state, sharing how it came to be, how we now are friends for over 10 years, how this group exploded, and how it's basically taken on a life of its own. And we just want to continue doing it. But the most important part of the book and of the group is the interaction of the members. We're just the caretakers. It's the people that belong to our group that make it what it is today.
All right, thank you, Jeff. I was born in Orlando, Florida. So I've lived here my entire life with the exception of about 5 years during my teen years. My dad's job transferred him up to Atlanta, so I lived outside of Atlanta for about 5 years and then have been in Florida ever since. So lived in Tampa for a little while as a kid, on Davis Islands, which any of you are familiar with. It's a really nice place. So I went from the woods of Altamont Springs, which was at that time just like, complete wilderness almost. There was nothing but just woods and lakes and orange groves. So moving from there to Tampa as a kid, it was kind of this Mediterranean style architecture, which was totally foreign to us. But it was an awesome place to live. So I consider myself lucky to have spent some time there. So we both just have a shared interest in history, which we've both had since we were little. My father was a history lover as well, so I think that came from him. So with that, we'll get into the slides that we have for you today. These are pictures that were submitted in our group. So just this will give you a flavor of what the group is about, what type of photos we typically have. We got some then and now comparisons of locations in an old photo, and then I'll show you what they look like now. So this first one is a map of Alachua County from 1883. I think it's kind of interesting. The left river over there is the Swanee, and at that time the county extended all the way out to the river, but now I think it's over a little bit, not as large as it used to be at that time. So from here we'll go to the next slide, and this is a shot of Devil's Mill Hopper. A couple in 1890 and enjoying the mill hopper. I've yet to go to this place. I'm dying to see it in person. I think I first heard about it watching a Tom Petty documentary, and he was talking about how him and his friends would go party down in the mill hopper. So yeah, I definitely want to see it. Here it's a wonderful, unique sample that's been drawing since the Native Americans used to visit there. There's been bones and artifacts found, mastodon bones and Indian artifacts. So it's been a place that people have enjoyed for a long time. So we'll go to the next slide. This is a photo taken on Main Street here in Gainesville in the 1890s. It's the photographer's name was Milton Giddings, and this is his wife. I think she's in the center of two girls, which those are his daughters, and they're on their horse and carriage. And in the background, just behind the carriage, you can see the railroad tracks and the electricity or the power lines that are beginning to change the shape of Gainesville back in 1890. Okay, the next photo. This is from one of our members, Anita Rush Miller. This is her great-grandfather, James Matheson Hawthorne. He was the founder of the town of Hawthorne. And originally the town was named Jamestown, but it was later changed to Hawthorne after James. Okay, the next photo. Does anyone know where this is at? This is Micanopy. It's still there, which I'll show you in the next photo. But this photo was taken in the early 1900s. It's the home of Dr. Lucius Montgomery, which you can see just over the wall on the left side is his home. And I believe that was the first of 3 homes that he had on that location. They all burned down prior. The wall and the archway is still there, and I'll show you that in the next clip. And it's been taken well. It's been well taken care of by the city. There's been a couple of times where the widening of the road at one time it caused them to parts of it were taken down while that was going on. It got hit by a tree one time during a hurricane, and the city rallied around and raised money to get it repaired. So they take pride in this structure, which it's on Smith Street, I believe. If you're ever in Micanopy, if you want to go check it out. Okay, the next photo. I don't know where in the county this photo was taken, but it's from 1900, somewhere here in Alachua County. African American schoolhouse. I think it's a very interesting photo, the way they decorated the schoolhouse with Spanish moss and palmetto leaves. I'm not sure if that was for the photograph or it was for an occasion of some sort, but it's a pretty interesting photo. And we'll go to the next slide. And this is a photo taken in High Springs. High Springs in 1912 suffered a great fire that destroyed much of the town, and this photo was taken right before that or slightly before that occurred. So it gives you a nice look of what it was like before a lot of those buildings were destroyed. This is a photo of the home of J.L. Grimes from High Springs. I'm pretty sure this house is no longer standing. Okay, the next photo is the 1885 Alachua County Courthouse. This photo was taken around 1906, and it existed until 1961 when they demolished it to build a new courthouse. This is a photo of the Alachua Sink. It's the deepest sinkhole in Payne's Prairie, and it's a major conduit for water entering the aquifer. And there was a time where I believe I've heard that the sink drained a good bit of the lake, and that contributed it to becoming basically a prairie. And I believe there's been over the years also some work done to divert water from the prairie by canals and so forth that I think contributed to that. And it does, I believe, the last time we had a hurricane dump a lot of water in that area was in 2017, and a lot of it flooded again and stayed flooded for a number of months before it finally dissipated. The next photo is of the town of Alachua, and this is a photo on Main Street in 1915. And the next photo shows the exact same location recently. So a lot of the buildings are still there. It's one of the towns that hasn't changed a whole lot downtown in that amount of time compared to others. Okay, we'll go to the next photo. This is the old Dunnigan Mill that was owned and operated by J.P. Dunnigan and his family on the Santa Fe River near High Springs. And obviously that's no longer standing. Okay, this photo is from the Gainesville and Gulf Railroad. This photo was taken in Micanopy in 1915. And this rail line began in 1895, and it was for growers of the area to ship out their goods. And the locals didn't call it the Gainesville and Gulf, they called it the Grits and Gravy. So that was the Grits and Gravy line. And it changed the name later on to the Tampa and Jacksonville line, but it was interesting because it never actually went to either of those locations. Didn't make it that far. So the next photo is taken in around 1920 from the city of Hawthorne. This is their city hall. And in the next photo, you'll see that it's still there. One of the survivors. When people make posts to the group, that's something I immediately go do. I try to see if it's still there. I've always had a fascination with old buildings, and just the fact that they're still standing after so long is always of interest to me. So we'll go to the next photo now. This is from one of our members, Patty Sullivan. Her great grandmother, Nellie Hawley, in a drugstore in Archer in 1923. This is an example of some of the great photos we get from our members. That this particular photo is not in our book, but we did choose many like this that we feel like kind of sets our book apart from others. The next photo, if you could scroll that, make it a little bit bigger, is that possible? Thank you. That's a First Baptist Church of Newberry, taken in 1930. And we're lucky enough to still have that one around, if you see in the next photo. Very nice church. Okay, the next photo is, we're back in Gainesville now. This is East University Avenue, taken from Main Street. That's the courthouse square on the right side, I believe. And we'll have that same view of what it looks like today in the next photo. Jeff and I just drove right past there a little while ago.
Yeah.
Okay, the next photo is, this is in McCroy's that used to be downtown on East Main. It was across from the courthouse, and that whole block is now known as Diddley Plaza, after Bo Diddley, who used to play a lot in Gainesville, and he lived in Archer for a while. And if I'm not mistaken, he also lived in Hawthorne, I believe, for a little while. But he's a legend from this area, which I saw some photos of him on the wall. Here he is behind the big screen. Okay, the next photo. This is the 1940s post office and district courthouse. And this is now known as the Hippodrome Theater, which is still there today in the next photo. All right, the next photo is of Sears, also here in downtown. Some of y'all may have been there back in the day. Fortunately, that building's still around. And I don't know what happened to the today photo, but trust me, it's still there. We'll probably come to it in a minute. Okay, this is the Phi Delta Theta house at UF. And in the next photo, it's still there. And in the next photo is the Sears. So if you remember what that looked like 2 photos ago, there it is today. All right, the next photo is, this is 1940s view of the southwest corner of Maine and US 27 in High Springs. And that little gas station on the left there, pay attention to that. If you skip now to the next photo, it's now Bambi's Cafe. All of the buildings there on the right are still from that original photo. So another one of the areas that hasn't changed a whole lot, fortunately. Okay, the next photo is from the 1950s, and this was sort of a dark chapter in our history, back when pools were segregated and schools were segregated and restaurants were segregated. It was a different time, unfortunately, and I think it's important that we all remember those times and remember how wrong they were and how we've been able to move beyond the way that things were back then. So I just wanted to include something showing that in our little presentation here. Okay, photo is out of order. Skip to the okay. There we go. That is right near here. Actually, Matheson is down at the end of the road there, past that tall building, right hand side. But this is looking at University Avenue from 3rd Street. And if you can go to the today view, looks a lot the same. That one lot there on the left has been cleared out from the original picture. But it's a nice comparison. Look at how things have changed, yet not so much in this particular case. Okay, the next photo. This is a restaurant called Holiday House in High Springs from the 1950s. It's funny, a lot of times we'll come across photos and we don't know the exact year, but in this case, you could say, yeah, that's the 50s. Those cars are unmistakable. But it's always interesting when we do that, someone will chime in, well, that's a 1956 Thunderbird, or, so they'll pinpoint it within a few years, usually the car experts. Okay, the next photo, this is of homecoming here at University of Florida. In 1954, this is a fraternity house of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity, and this was located at the southeast corner of West University and 441. It's been torn down, unfortunately. It was a nice big house. I've seen other photos of it earlier than this. It's a shame it's not there anymore. But if you skip to the next photo, I think it will show that lot has been cleared. It originally after the fraternity house was torn down, a gas station was built there, and now it's been leveled. And now, if I'm not mistaken, apartment buildings are going to be built on that corner now. A music building, really? Okay. Okay. The next photo. This is also here in Gainesville in the 1960s. This is on. This is at the intersection of 13th Street near 23rd Avenue. And on the left, there's the mall that used to be there, the Woolco across the street. And I got a today view of that particular area. If you see that red dot on the median there on the left, and then if you skip back to the old photo, Caitlin, it's right about where that gentleman's standing, right in the same area. So not too much has changed with that. Just the name of the stores is different. It's okay. Let's go to the next photo. This is another one from one of our members, Lourdes Said Lebron, and her father-in-law and his brother owned a machine shop in Alachua, Florida. And this is just another sampling of great member contributed photos. I like the dog and the way the guys are at kind of ease there. I'm not sure if they even know their photo was being taken, but I just enjoyed that photo. The next photo is a group of FSU fans tearing down the goalpost after a 3-3 tie in 1961. They first started playing just a few years prior. 1958 was the first time that they played against each other. And Florida had won every game up to that point. And so the FSU fans thought that was a big deal, making a 3-3 tie. It was a cause for celebration. So it's funny, the coach Ray Graves likened that outcome like a death in the family. He said, as it was kind of hard to take for them back then. I'm told that those goalposts ended up getting paraded down Tennessee Avenue in Tallahassee after that victory. Okay, the next photo is another restaurant from High Springs, just another typical diner style restaurant that were all over the place back in the 40s and 50s. The next photo. Okay, this is Colonel Sanders on the right, being perched up in a Rolls Royce. He was here for homecoming back in 1965.
I wonder if he cooked.
Okay, this next photo, I believe, also came from a member. Wametco Plaza Theater, Gainesville, 1968. Thomas Crown Affair. Do y'all remember the original one? Okay, the next photo is a yearbook photo of Tom Petty on the right-hand side from Gainesville High School, 1968. I love the hairstyle of the girl in the middle. Actually, all three hairstyles are very representative of the times. The clean cut, all-American boy on the left, and the hairstyle all the girls had back in the day. And Tom was like starting to become a hippie almost compared to the other guy. Okay, the next photo is a railroad depot in Archer. This was on the Waldo to Tampa route, 1974, and that depot was closed in 1974, and it's gone now, unfortunately. Now this photo is the former Potato Growers Association building in La Crosse, and it was torn down in 2020. And if you skip to the next photo, that's what's there now. Okay, so that's concludes our slides that we have for you. Sorry. Okay, I'll turn it over to Jeff now. Thank you.
I hope you all enjoyed the slides, and it just reiterates what we were saying. Quite a few of them, as you noticed, came from members. And again, that's what separates us from the rest. The photos themselves are representative of a different time, of a different place, of a different era, whatever you'd want to call it. But it's keeping with the fact that if we don't put all of these living records of where the 67 counties of Florida came from, where they started, where they were midstream, and where they're going, nobody will. Organizations such as the Matheson and other museums throughout the state are our resources. They're our lifeline. They're why we're able to successfully do this. But again, it's really, really up to the members. And I know I've mentioned that a couple of times in this conversation, but we're going to continue to do this. We're going to continue to put out books. We're going to continue to travel throughout the state. And we're doing this for no other reason but our love of the state of Florida, our love of history, our ability to preserve what's here and pass it down to the future generations so that, if somebody walks by a strip mall, maybe there's someone who will tell them that used to be a livery. That used to be something else before it became a Bed Bath and Beyond. It was a church that was founded by a family that came in the late 1800s. It was the neighborhood pharmacy before there was CVS and Walgreens. It was your mom and pop store where we all came from. Part of the reason why I guess that I have such an affinity for this, as you'll see in the book, is that my family, we originally came from New York, but when we opened our stores on Miami Beach, we were TV, radio, repair people, and sales. So we were your neighborhood store. If someone came in with a earphone that didn't work, we'd repair it. Someone had a flashlight that didn't work, we'd repair it. Everybody knew each other's name. It was just your anywhere USA, but this was in Miami Beach. I guess the bottom line is that progress is something we cannot stop. Change is inevitable, but you can have change and still remember where it all started. With that, if there's questions, we'd love to answer them. Do our best.
In 1998, a sinkhole opened up in Payne's Prairie. It went directly into the aquifer, and you could smell the fish for 50 miles.
Oh my goodness.
Wow. That I didn't know. Thank you. Anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Painting, one of those being then it also showed it another Fort Canning east of that. You know anything about that?
I'm afraid I don't. That particular map was hand drawn by someone way back when, so I don't know the reason behind that. I will look into that, though. I would like to know that answer.
Fort Canning, Fort Canning. Yeah, it's probably Springs and Fort Fanning Railroad that continues to the RR to the right of Fanning. Oh, I see. I think that's just train track. All right. Yes. The symbol of Gainesville is a train. That's the city symbol. And the train didn't, it might have from Tampa here. I'd never heard of that. But train from Cedar Key to Fernandina Beach was a very important train because it brought all the wood out for the pencil industry of America. And brakes didn't work well on trains. Gainesville, Mount Gainesville, it was the highest point between Cedar and Fernandina Beach. So the trains parked here overnight, tail end would go down that way and that way they stable night, and these big houses in the Duck Pond area, boarding houses, people on that train spend the night here at Gainesville.
Very interesting.
So,
She was, and we sat down and I did interviews with her, and she would tell me where she lived or where she did this and that, and we would get on Google Earth, Google Images,
Right.
and go to the address and see what's there now. And some of the houses she lived in were still there, so that was pretty cool. I did that for my grandkids.
And how old was she at the time when you were doing that?
76, and we got halfway through the prompt book I had, and she passed away. So the rest of the stories came from her brother, Henry Winkle.
again, that's living history.
About those places, unless
It's funny. I discussed this with my kids who are in their early 20s, and they try to, pacify me and make like they're interested. And I know they're looking right through me, but someday they'll be interested in it. Someday they'll want to know what was here 100 years ago. They'll want to know that where their father's from. I'm from a little town called North Bay Village down in Miami. And in the 1940s, they actually brought North Bay Village up from the ocean. So it's interesting. I guess they have other things on their mind, but at some point, I'd like to think they'd be interested in it.
Still there, and that's back in, I believe, the 50s or 60s. And but they also run back then. Hilliard was a first stop, one of the first stops into Florida.
Right.
They ran a boarding house.
Interesting.
That's one point about our group that I wanted to bring up. In our Facebook group, we have an hourglass like other groups do, which is the search engine. There are between 70 to 80,000 photos contained on the group. And you could pick out the most obscure lost city or lost town in the state of Florida. And odds are we have photographs of that particular area. We have it. Yes. We do. We have Hilliard. Uh, we pride ourselves on finding unusual photos. We do have loads of photos here from Gainesville, as I mentioned earlier, a lot, from the Matheson and from other sources. But we try not to be repetitious, and we try to create a variety and to pique the interest of our members. And we allow, that's a poor choice of words. We have feedback from our members as to what's working and what's not working. And it's just part of what makes the group stand out from others.
Yes, Caitlin.
There's one on both sides of the courthouse that may look slightly familiar. Because there is
Oh my goodness.
Ah,
How awesome.
Ken Crum took that clock down, preserved it for years and years. And in the 1980s, it was put over in front of the big hall. And still,
That's great.
any questions? Yes, Ben.
great grandfather just lives, and Ivan House was his home, and he's a doctor downstairs. I have a lot of photos.
Really?
Wow.
Are you in our history group by any chance? Okay, well, before you leave, get one of these little cards. Anyone else would like one as well? It has direct links to our group, to us. We get more information about us and about our book and the group. So I would encourage you to join our group. We would love to see those photos. That's kind of a mission of Jeff and ours, and mine, excuse me. We do encourage people to go through and dig out these photos because God forbid one day they wind up in a landfill somewhere. These are memories that are not going to come back. And fortunately, people took the time to take some photos, and I would think it would be awful for future generations to miss out on those. So we do love when people join our group and share these old photos. And um, we may at some point do a second book. We haven't finalized anything on that yet, but we would really love to only feature family shared photos in our next book if we're so fortunate enough to be able to do that. So we feel like those are the most special photos to us that you don't see in the libraries and the previous books that have been published before.
We've also, and I know Mike has, we've also gone to homes of members who've invited us. Mike has been to a few places in Orlando, retrieved photos of Orlando. I've retrieved photos. We've scanned them. We've put them on the group. I would consider us armchair historians. Our main goal is to preserve as much photographic history of our state as possible. And the only gain that we're receiving here is the fact that we are acting as archivists and we are trying to do something that hopefully years from now will remain.
Yeah, that was really never a goal when we first started the group. It was more just a place for people to talk about the old times, and we've been fortunate enough to accumulate quite a few photos over the years. So we do feel like it is turned into a valuable tool for people to learn from. So I don't know what'll ever happen one day when we're gone. Maybe we can turn over the keys to a museum or something. And I would love to think that in some capacity, all the photos that we've accumulated can still be accessed. I don't know what will ever happen to Facebook in the future.
They have them on a portable drive.
Okay. So all of your grandkids and children are safe. So like Jeff said, we do try to preserve as many photos as we can. Are there any other questions? Well, we very much appreciate everyone showing up. And if you haven't had an opportunity to purchase one of our books, we would love to get one to you. We would love to sign them and hear your stories, hear where you're from. And thank you so much. We appreciate it.